a friend, a mate that we've spent a lot of time together over the years, and there were really a lot of good signs there for the Karachi side that we were just a fraction away from giving ourselves the opportunity to go all the way. So
Yeah, I mean, Karachi's upward trajectory since Haider Bhai joined speaks for itself.
he's a fantastic guy and obviously a world-class player as well, and so someone that I've always admired in terms of how they've played the game, and he shapes up a little bit like Abdullah from Lahore, in terms of their techniques. They're very correct and adaptable with their games. On me being involved under his captaincy, which was an amazing time for New Zealand cricket. A really enjoyable time as a player, and we were able to achieve some pretty cool things. But
A moment in your career which was grand enough or gave you enough satisfaction to kind of make you forget boundary count, World Cup final.
Boundary count. 2015 World Cup final.
Nice.
Full shot.
just current players or past players?
No,
too?
no,
Oh,
any player.
Yeah, good. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Here we go, Hanji, and welcome back to the Pro Sports Podcast. I've got Bahram Kazi here with me today, but we've got a very, very special guest lined up for you guys.
Yes, and I mean, we both feel very privileged to be conversing with this legend in question, former New Zealand captain, and in my opinion, the best batter that New Zealand has ever produced. 9,276 runs at a batting average of nearly 55 in 105 test matches, and the latest player from Karachi Kings,
Yeah.
Kane Williamson. Kane, how are you doing, mate? And thank you so much for taking out the time for this one.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, we love to have you, man. All right, let's just get straight into
Yeah,
it, right?
dive into it.
I'd like to talk to you about the PSL experience. You joined Karachi Kings for the first time. You were here in Pakistan. You didn't get a game to play, but anyways, how was the experience in playing in, participating in the dressing room and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was really enjoyable having sort of been to Pakistan to play over the last 3 years, probably 4 or 5 times, whether that's a bilateral series or the Champions Trophy, and then to have the opportunity to play in, the domestic franchise league within the country, which I've been, fortunate to do in other countries, is always a really great experience. You get much closer to the culture and how other teams like to do things, and so I'd also heard, a lot about the competition from other players that had experienced it before. So to get that opportunity, despite not playing a game, was really enjoyable, and a great environment to be involved in as well at Karachi.
Well, that's music to our ears, Kane. And you might not remember this, but we have met briefly in a press conference when you scored a double hundred in Karachi in a test match. So, well, we did share a moment back then. But anyway, you, of course, were with the Karachi Kings. I really want to ask you, what was it like linking up with Davey Warner once again? Of course, you guys won the IPL together at Sunrisers Hyderabad. You played under his captaincy, and a similar sort of thing played out over here. So, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, he's a friend, a mate that we've spent a lot of time together over the years. And you mentioned at Hyderabad there, we were together for 8 years, and it was really nice to connect. And we're actually playing together again in the hundred over in England. So obviously played against each other for pretty much all of our international careers, and then it's always been enjoyable playing together, which. Yeah, certainly, Davey keeps it exciting, keeps it interesting, and an incredibly talented, world-class player, and a really good, strong leader as well.
Right. So you talked about David Warner. How was it? How was the experience working with Haider Azhar, who's the general manager of Karachi Kings, because he's taken over Karachi over the past 2 seasons, and we've seen Karachi improve leaps and bounds. So how was the experience over there?
Yeah, I mean, Hayder was a brilliant operator. It was the first time I'd met Hayder, and ran a really, really good environment along with some of the support staff that stood alongside, and obviously and Davey as well. And yeah, it ran really smoothly, which is great. And you don't always see it in the franchise space. At times, there's a lot of emotion, and everybody goes out with strong aspirations for success, but I think the teams that sort of have that wider vision with how they want to operate over a longer period of time seem to be a little bit more stable and consistent in how they go about things. And I know Haider, very much has that view, and I think we saw that a lot from the Karachi team as well. I think they played really nicely. They got themselves into a really strong position, and we know the margins are so small. And in T20 cricket and especially in tournament sport where you're there for a month and all teams are strong, but there were really a lot of good signs there for the Karachi side that we were just a fraction away from giving ourselves the opportunity to go all the way. So yeah, like I say, it was a really enjoyable environment to be involved in and run really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, Karachi's upward trajectory since Haider Bhai joined speaks for itself. But of course, Kane, you mentioned that you've been touring Pakistan quite frequently in the last 3, 4 years. And of course, you've been playing Pakistan for pretty much all of your career. And I
Mm.
just wanted to ask you, what's your relationship like with some of the Pakistan boys? Because you beat them so frequently. And we've all noticed that bromance you've got with Babar Azam. So shed some light on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose over the years when you play opposition a number of times, and naturally you spend a little bit of time, with opposition players, and then you find a bit of common ground. So for Bubba and I, that's probably with the bat and also captaincy, and so yeah, we would connect, and he's a fantastic guy, and obviously a world-class player as well, and so someone that I've always admired in terms of how they've played the game, and they're always, yeah, he's a wonderful player to watch, and but yeah, a brilliant guy, and so it was nice to connect off the field a little bit, and how the PSL runs often all the teams are sort of in the same location, so you sort of have that opportunity to do that again. Yeah, and it's been enjoyable. I know he debuted a few years after me, but seeing him come on the scene and um, explode into this world-class talent, yeah, it's been brilliant to see. But I think the other thing is, as international players, or you're always navigating different challenges. You're going to different conditions, or you're adding captaincy to your plate. And often you do sort of share these experiences like with each other to learn and work through them, and it's a pretty open book, which is quite good.
Uh,
Lovely.
all right, sticking up with the Pakistani players, I'd like to ask you who are your favorite Pakistani cricketers, current and all time?
Oh, um,
That's a tough one.
all time, yeah. I mean, Mohammed Yusuf, always loved watching Mohammed Yusuf bat. Yunus Khan as well. And I was fortunate to play with Shoaib Malik in some
Yeah.
T20 cricket, and learned a lot from him. So those three are guys that I either enjoyed playing with, or really admired watching. Sort of only caught the end of Inzamam Al Haq,
Mhm.
but yeah, he was also another wonderful player. But and the current guys, I mean, I suppose the players that I know a little bit better, make that easier, and it's that off-field connection, and Baba we've spoken about, Fakar Zaman as well, who he's he's the New Zealand destroyer basically. He comes out and smacks us everywhere every time we play him, so we're sick of the sight of him, but he's so dangerous as a player, but a great fella. In fact, that's common throughout the Pakistani team. We've played each other so often, certainly in recent years, and there's a good connection there. But Rizwan as well. Some of these familiar faces that we've played, and then you see these younger players coming through, and the talent that there is in Pakistan, and to see it firsthand during the PSL and all these other teams. You see that every team plays the emerging talent as well, and whether it's a young player coming in, like for Karachi bowling 150 Ks, or it's a young batter who's lighting it up, and they're getting their first opportunity. It just shows that, yeah, there's just a huge amount of gifted cricketers, within the country, and nurturing that talent's the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, a follow-up question to that, I suppose, would be that having been part of Karachi Kings dressing room, which youngsters caught your eye? Who would be those sort of cricketers from Pakistan that you could earmark for future stardom?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many guys. OB was a guy that came in, and I know he had a lot of reps. He's played a couple of um, international fixtures as well, and he shapes up a little bit like Abdullah from Lahore. In terms of their techniques, they're very correct and adaptable with their games, and I think just entering that T20 format, like Shafiq, who's batting extremely well and one of the players of the tournament, with a game that's so transferable to the other formats is great to see. And yeah, Niazi, I saw a little
Mm.
bit of, and we were just I was only there for a couple of weeks, and gosh, he's a dynamic player that offers in so many facets of the game, which is obviously with the bat coming in and being so destructive in the middle order to lower order, but also in the field as well, which is so valuable having strong fielders in your unit. And then not only that, but to see someone like Hassan Ali come back, who's no youngster, but gosh, he was moving like one, and the rhythm that he had throughout the season is really exciting for Pakistan cricket. So um, a number of players within the side that are great to watch and were nice to learn a bit more about. And I think in every team you could see the talent. So plenty to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, it's been one of those PSLs where the emerging players have done exceptionally
Yeah.
well. You look at Naeem in Lahore and
Hassan Nawaz and
Mm.
Quetta
Hassan Nawaz
Gladiators.
in
Yeah.
Quetta, Ali Raza in
Yeah.
Peshawar, Ubaid Shah in Multan. So it has been a really good
Mm.
PSL in that regard.
Yeah.
Now, on to a bit of a technical question, Kane. I consider you to be one of the finest anchor batters that white ball cricket has ever seen,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
But what are your opinions on the role of an anchor batter in T20 cricket moving forward? Because the game is moving so quickly now and strike rates have
Mm.
ballooned up that I really want to know if you feel like if is this a role that is almost obsolete or is there still room for anchor batters?
Yeah, I mean, I personally have um, never liked the term anchor and never really adopted it myself, despite what it may look like at times. I still think encouraging players to play the situation um, is really, really valuable. And and you pick teams with players with different skill sets to complement each other. And ultimately, you're just trying to find your best recipe as a team to bring success. So how that looks and what you need and what you require, will kind of come out in the wash as you ask yourself those questions. But but anchor batting, um, in my mind, is not really a role. It's actually, what players complement each other, and as we've seen, the ability now, players are often more comfortable trying to chase 180 or score 200 than they are navigating an innings and chasing 160 or coming out of a situation of 50 for four and getting themselves into a position of strength to help their team get across the line. So we're sort of we've seen the game change so much, like you say, where there, I think right at the start there was this idea of an anchor player, so players could play with freedom around it. He was someone of stability, but now you've kind of fast forward this power game to seeing scores of 260, 270, which um, is still not all that common, but
Hmm.
we almost throw our focus into this round that this is what the game will be. But then 2 days later, it becomes 140 again, and teams
Hmm.
lose all their comfortability around how they want to navigate it because they've thrown all their eggs in one basket. So I think it comes back to your recipe as a team, how players complement each other in the roles that they have. But yeah, the word anchor sort of suggests something passive, and I think it's actually about players with different styles complement each other when the time is right, when the situation is right. Whether you are a power player or a striker like a Zaman or a player like myself or like maybe a Babar who might be a bit more conventional. Regardless, there's a job to do, and it's either to go out and accelerate the strike rate in the way that best suits, or it's trying to navigate a period of play to get your team in a position of strength. So I just think it comes back to the team and what the team requires and the role that you have within the team. Because even innings batting, players that always look to just bat an innings, is that always adding the most value? When you look at the resource that you have and the roles that you have, I think it's more about passing the baton. And if your role at this time was to get through a tough period and then accelerate, well, then that's what needs to be adopted and done. And then you get dismissed doing it because you pass the baton to the next player that's required to do that again. So yeah, I still think batsmanship, awareness, game awareness is really important, but this idea of anchoring an innings, yeah, it can't override the team goal, which is about moving the team forward, the team's best recipe for success, and committing to that.
Fair enough.
Love that answer.
I suppose we should have had Simon Dougal for this conversation as well, because then we would have the full shebang. But anyway, let's move on.
I'd like to deep dive into
Hmm.
Kane himself, right?
Yeah, of course.
So the first question that comes to my mind is, Kane, how did you pick up the sport?
Yeah, yeah, my father played a bit of cricket, club cricket, and for some reason that's what I was sort of drawn to mostly. But I mean, I got a twin brother and three sisters, and they were all into their sports as well. So it was all about playing as many sports as you could. And as you go through the years, you get a little bit older, and you start to work out which ones might suit you a little bit more. And I mean, I was playing rugby and basketball, and naturally had a few challenges in some of the physique departments of those two. So cricket kind of lends itself to all shapes and sizes, and I loved all the intricacies of the game and trying to
Hmm.
problem solve and the technical parts, and you can get right into it, and that sort of really drew me in, and it being a team sport too. There's so many sports out there. Some are team sports, some aren't, and I really enjoy playing team sports and yeah, being involved in teams. So yeah, there were a number of boxes ticked when it came to cricket.
Lovely. And it is such a nuanced sport, which
Yeah.
really goes under the wraps at times. People think it's all black and white, whereas I feel like cricket is more so in the gray, as you mentioned, of course, with your explanation of the whole anchor batter thing. But you've mentioned how you picked up the sport, but I'd love to know who were your heroes growing up? Some coaches and then international players who had a major influence on your career. I know that Baz McCullum was a very, very influential figure within New Zealand cricket, and you guys made the
Mm.
final in a home World Cup in 2015 as well. So, who were your heroes growing up, and then your sort of mentors as you progressed along in your career?
Yeah, yeah, you mentioned cricket sort of being in the grey and these terms like anchor roles, and I think you just see a sport like cricket evolve so much, and there's not many sports in the world that have the three formats. There's probably not too many sports in the world that you'd see change so drastically over such a period of time, where you would have,
Yeah.
for example, a role like a termed anchor role where someone had a legitimate place to try and hold up an end. So you sort of see these sort of changes that happen over the years, which is exciting. I mean, as a player being involved in the game for a long time, it's quite enjoyable actually trying to work through that and find your place and where can you add value and how does it all fit. But growing up, for me, that was a few years ago now, being a youngster, and Test cricket was, very much and still is in my mind, but the pinnacle. And so you would look, to I would often look at some of the best players in the world that I loved to follow, and Sachin Tendulkar was one for me. But often there were players in all countries we spoke about, um, Mohammad Yusuf and some of the Pakistani players, some of the Australian guys, Ricky Ponting. Um, Jacques Callis. I would sort of really enjoy looking abroad about how other players would do things, and then closer to home, and with players like Stephen Fleming or Brendan McCullum, who I was fortunate to largely play most of my career with. In terms of Brendan, who was a huge influence um, on me, being involved under his captaincy, which was an amazing time for New Zealand cricket. Um, a really enjoyable time as a player, and we were able to achieve some pretty cool things. But
Hmm.
and in terms of coaches and mentors, they've kind of changed a lot over the years. Really,
Hmm.
it was sort of often in the teams that you're in, and you might have a coach or two, and there's certainly some guys that when I was a lot younger that used to do some sessions with, and then you move into these different teams or your domestic sides and setups, and then your international side, and so you're building these different relationships all the way along, whether that's batting coaches or head coaches, etc. Um, but then ultimately, I think it's about really encouraging that self-sufficiency in your game, so you're able to fall back on what it is that you've learned and know to be true and important about your game, versus um, too much sort of reliance on what someone can tell you or what else is out there. So that was always important for me, and kind of how it sort of shaped my game and how I go about it, really.
All right.
Wonderful. Okay, so I've actually got a follow-up
All
question
right.
because Kane mentioned to us that he believes that Test cricket is the pinnacle. We also believe the
Mm.
same. It's the format. It's my favorite sport,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you will, right?
It is
Mm.
a different sport
Yeah. And then, of
altogether.
course, you were the first World Test Championship Mace lifting captain.
Yeah.
So, A, what did that feel like? And B, was that like a moment in your career which was grand enough or gave you enough satisfaction to kind of make you forget boundary count, World Cup final?
Boundary count and the 2015 World Cup final. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, interesting you mentioned that. I suppose, with the Test cricket thing, firstly, it's it's just the purest form, that just has so many different challenges and ebbs and flows, and what comes with the game, the history behind it, the tradition. It's great. And I think a lot of people perhaps would still say that, but the challenges we have at the moment in the game are that the pathways created aren't sort of connected with that vision, and so that's a challenge in the game with the test format at the moment. That's fine, and there's a few conversations going on to try and see how that's. Yeah, I mean the test championship for us as a team was really quite special, and you mentioned. The forgetting of some of the past experiences, but I mean they were amazing times as well for us as a team, and some heartbreak there and getting close and all these sorts of things that sport can deliver, and we were involved in a few of them. But to fast forward and have that taste of success, and winning a comp, which was that Test Championship final, um, which was amazing. Kind of felt like, I don't know, the journey we'd been on, and perhaps at that time it was something that that we'd earned, and maybe even deserved. So and within all those things, there's so much you can't control, and you go to a tournament like a World Cup, and you play 10 games, or whatever it is, 9 games, and to end up in a final or a semi-final, and go on, as we know in any game of cricket, it's just full of small margins and uncontrollable. So you always look at the end point upon reflection,
Yeah.
but as a group, and what we've been able to do over a long period of time, and obviously have that moment during the Test Championship final, and even reaching the final is yeah, was great as a group. There were so many players involved in all of those different experiences that probably had a different feeling towards it, but certainly a special feeling that.
Yeah, I mean, you did mention that it's the purest form and you
Yeah,
enjoy it the most. And we all remember those scenes when you and Roscoe
yeah.
kind of were at the crease, hitting the winning runs and all of that. It was really special. But I do have one question with respect to
The
the ODI.
infamous 2019 World Cup final.
Yeah, the ODI World Cup final. How did you manage to be so sportsmanlike in the aftermath of
Yeah.
losing on boundary count? Because, I mean, I respect you deeply for it, but
Mm.
that must be really challenging.
Yeah, yeah, I like the rules around that were obviously quite difficult to understand and even make sense of, and even now, obviously, no one could say it's been changed since, but it was what it was at the time, and they were in place, and to a certain extent, as a group, you can choose your behavior or how you conduct yourselves, and being involved in that was sort of the position or the hand that we were dealt, I guess, um, and as the captain of the team, you can get caught in the emotion of that moment, or you can sort of just try and look at that bigger picture of where we are as a group and how we've been tracking. And I've always said that, when you're involved in I suppose the position that has influence over the direction of the team, your goal is to see it track and improve and be better and commit to what gives you the best chance as a group. And then outside of that, there aren't a lot of promises, but if you're doing that, you're gonna have a few good days. And so in a lot of ways, it didn't feel right to behave in any other way, because as a group, did we go out, commit to the things that, it wasn't a perfect performance. Neither team was perfect. I mean, would you expect it to be perfect? Probably not.
Yeah.
The game was possibly perfect by someone's standards. I don't know, not ours.
Yep.
But there was some perfection in it, which was which was mad. You couldn't repeat that if you tried. It was a game that was full of happenings. And there were just two teams that were involved in it. It was, um, but from a general point of view, you finish that, you're still there, and there's still more to do. Um, and I know it's a big moment, and I know it's a pinnacle event, and we certainly feel that way about it. But the journey continues, and it's about getting better again, and it's about where we can where we can keep heading as a group, and this is just a part of the experiences, this moment.
Yeah, I mean, or the New Zealanders are known to be the nice guys of cricket, and you, of course, are the nicest amongst them all.
Yeah.
That much we know of, and you guys always like are a sum of your parts. You play as a team, and you achieve consistent success
Yeah.
throughout all of these tournaments.
Yeah.
It really is remarkable.
All right, but I'd like to talk about Test cricket. As Kane has said, as you have said, we're Test purists. We love that sport itself. But do you think there's a lack of Test cricket now? And as New Zealand's only playing only five Tests this year, do you think the lack of Test cricket does that bother you a lot?
Yeah, it does a little bit. Having said that, I can understand why that's the case. I mean, you're competing with the commercials of the game, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
boards are challenged with trying to make it all work, and some are challenged a lot more than others, and that's the international landscape. That my fear, I guess, is not that it's starting to happen; it's that it's been happening for a long time,
Yeah.
um and that the pathway to becoming a test cricketer now is challenged by a pathway to doing so many other things, which
Hmm.
which is amazing in terms of the opportunities that are there. But I suppose if I come back to my first love of the game, which was the test format, I feel how grateful I've been to be sort of largely involved in that space, and the feeling that you have of sort of coming together as a group over a long period of time, and achieving something that takes sort of constant effort and discipline, and it challenges your like your resolve, your focus, your patience, you know, these sort of inner movements of the game. The satisfaction of finishing that, or coming out in a test match
Hmm.
and winning, or sometimes not. It could be a draw, which nobody understands,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or it could be. But the roller coaster that it takes you on, and to do that so many times, it's it can't really be repeated in any of the other formats. You know, because there's such a high volume, I guess, of the other formats. They last a day, they might last 3 hours, and they come and they go. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoy playing all of them. Um, but what you get and what you learn, and you know, the retention of those experiences and in the test format are so much more, I think. You know, so it's the soul of the game, I believe,
Hmm.
um, and it's really challenged, you know. And I think
Yeah.
it's a
Love it.
great foundational place for young players to aspire to. Is yeah, not everybody will play Test cricket, but to to have a strong base to your game, whether that's a batter or a bowler, and the volume that that brings to to your skill set, and then the ability to learn, I think is brilliant, even if that's then transferring into the other formats. So
Hmm.
but it's tough. The carrots that are dangled, and the sparkly lights of everything else is there, and they're wonderful opportunities for people, and I've been very fortunate as well to have
Hmm.
been a part of, you know, a number of those competitions and formats.
Yeah, it's interesting, some of your peers, of course, from New Zealand are now on casual contracts as
Yeah.
well. You opted out from a central contract, but
Mm,
we understand that because you've obviously played a vast majority of your career already. Is that the future of cricket, right? Because you've got this proliferation of franchise T20s. Of course, there's a lot of opportunities, lucrative opportunities on offer. Do you expect more
mm,
casual contracts in the future? Because we've seen some in South Africa now as well,
Yeah.
right? So it's catching on.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. All we've
Mhm.
seen in the last sort of 2 or 3 years is that becomes slightly more of a trend, and as you start to see that more, it starts to normalize. And I suppose, and that's what I mean about the pathway, that, you know, we keep thinking about keeping the game at a certain place where it's still there, but it's actually what we're promoting is the priority cricket, and
Hmm.
that's tough because not a lot of boards can support it
Yeah.
quite like they can with T20 cricket, and
Yeah.
that's the world we're in, and that's life. And others can, you know, so they'll potentially be able to provide that resistance a bit longer. But naturally, we're seeing, um, I mean, we're seeing the whole world move to these quicker fixes, you know, and in all industries really, and so it's probably quite natural that 5 days might be a little bit long for for some in terms of an
Yeah.
entertainment proposition versus 3 hours of sort of um, you know, of a T20 cricket or a TikTok reel or a something else, you know. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And you know, I think just as a sport, we've probably got to be grateful that we do have three formats, that they all still exist, and cricket is very much here to stay, and it's thriving, and just in some formats more so than others.
So, of course, you've mentioned, Kane, that you would love to play more Test cricket, as is obvious. I would also love to see that, honestly, like when I look at the Fab Four, right? And you're one quarter of the Fab Four. So, imagine like Joe Root and you both have started your career at the same time. Joe Root might go on to break Sachin's record, but Kane Williamson has only unfortunately played 105 Test
Yeah.
matches. So, this does really bother me. I don't know about you. But like, I just wanted to kind of get into your mind and understand what drives you. Is it to get to a certain amount of runs? Is it to just play more and more games for New Zealand, win more silverware? What is that, drive or the stimulus for that drive when you play Test cricket?
Yeah, great question. I mean, after 100 tests, and you mentioned Joe, you know, and I sometimes look at that, and we might chat about it when we see each other. But like, I think he started about 2 years after me, and he's
Yeah.
played maybe 55 more tests or something, which, um, and that's, yeah, and honestly, that it's an amazing place to watch and be a test fan, England, and they do play a lot more test cricket, and you still see the game or the format thriving here, and I think that's brilliant, and it's infectious, and being a test fan, um, it's great when you see that, and there's still large crowds and it's well supported.
Hmm.
Yeah, for me now, and I suppose, after 15 years, and not just that, but the captaincy as well, and so you're sort of really on this pursuit of where you want to go as a team, and I sort of keep coming back to that. Really, it's about the team. Um, it's about trying to contribute to that vision, um,
Hmm.
and it's sort of more than just representing your country. I think that's um, a great thing, and a real honor and a privilege. But you're there as a group of people, as a team that are trying to achieve something, and I get a buzz out of that, and so I've been fortunate to be involved in environments, within the New Zealand team that's had a really strong focus and a strong vision, and whether that's prior to me captaining, or during the captaincy, which you adopt all the different responsibilities. But yeah, so now it's quite an interesting time of like sort of transition, and
Hmm.
potentially new coach, and some of the younger players coming through, and I suppose there's a support role around being a little bit older. I think I might even be the oldest in the team now, which is, I still remember my debut at 20, which, that's scary, but so there's probably a bit of a role there as well. And like you mentioned, we don't play a huge amount of it, so um, yeah, working through that space.
So, what are your aspirations moving forward? Your mate,
Mm.
Virat Kohli, of course, who is another quarter of the Fab Four, has retired. Steve Smith is still going strong, as
Yeah.
is Joe Root. And I mean, Kane Williamson is averaging nearly 55 in Test cricket. Are you looking at the 10,000 run club? How long do you think, or how much gas do you think is left in you? And you mentioned coaching, so is that something you want to get into once you eventually retire? Hopefully not anytime soon, though.
Um, I sort of don't like, whenever you play, whenever you bat, you want to score as many runs as you can.
Yeah.
But like you say, you sort of, the schedule can dictate, the volume of cricket can dictate. I mean, it's to have some goals that rely on, that's tough to do. And for me, it's about enjoying it. It's about trying to add value and contribute, and so that's kind of less about me, more about the group. And quite honestly, that is when I enjoy it more. So a certain number, what's enough? I don't know.
Hmm.
What does it all mean? It's hard to know, but it's trying to keep turning up and bringing your true self, I guess, that what really motivates you and drives you, and staying committed to that. And for me, that's never been a number.
Hmm.
Sorry, and it was the other part about Virat, or
Yeah, I mean, Virat is retired, so I can just hope that you're not thinking along the same lines, right?
wow, man, closer to the end than the start. That's something that we can agree on. But yeah, I mean, I'm still really enjoying my cricket,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean, it's nice to be over here now. It was nice to be involved in the PSL, and be in England now, and looking forward to playing a little bit.
Yeah.
Lovely. That's music to our ears.
Baram, before we get into the rapid fire, I'd just like to remind our viewers that Kane Williamson is a Cornies ambassador.
Yeah,
So, Kane, have you had Cornies and do you like
cornies.
them?
I have had cornies, yeah. I mean, when I'm last two times actually, I was in Pakistan, and we had a nice care package of popcorn, which was,
Yeah.
I don't think I'd eaten popcorn for some years, and my kids quite like a bit of popcorn, but
Yeah.
and it was a nice treat on arrival, and as a team we actually consumed a bit of it, so a light treat, which was nice.
Yeah. No, no, these are
Yeah.
fantastic popcorn. And of
Yeah.
course, this podcast is powered by Cornies. You guys should go get your Cornies
Yeah.
today. We've got the toffee flavor with us over here.
Made in Pakistan, based in Islamabad, our very own Cornish popcorn. Go
Yes.
and enjoy it.
High on fiber, low on calories. There's no reason not to buy packaged popcorn because who has time for microwaves anymore? Anyway, before we just get to the rapid fire round, Kane, which will be the last bit of this podcast. You mentioned you've played, what, 15 years of international cricket
Yeah.
now? And I want to put you on the spot and ask you, who is the toughest bowler you've ever faced?
Ah, what format? What format?
All three formats.
Yeah, why don't you give us a bowler each for each format, I suppose?
Do you know, I reckon I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Jasprit Bumrah. Just across the board.
Across
Yeah.
I
all
think
formats, yeah.
across the board. Yeah, I mean, look at Dale Steyn, Vernon Philander in a Test series. Um, that was some challenge. You know, Ashwin in India where it's really spinning. So it's probably more moments, right, that you've really been sort of dominated, and then on other surfaces, it might be a bit different, but you definitely remember those times where you were forced to try and improve and develop your game because you were exposed, and I recall that certainly occasions when we played South Africa and Dale Steyn at one end and Vernon Philander at the other, and then they gave it to Morkel, and I was thinking, gosh, this
Oh
is-
my God.
so
You
those
just
are-
taking
yeah,
those
those are
names
some-
and us thinking about South African surfaces is giving me the creepers, I suppose. I suppose maybe it's also worth asking what is the toughest venue to bat on? Like, when the wickets are ragging, Ashwin and Jadeja can be a handful. You mentioned Steyn, Philander, and Morkel in South Africa. And of course, there is Jasprit Bumrah, regardless of what surface he bowls on.
What
Right?
venue, what surface.
Yeah.
Where did you struggle most, I suppose, or find it most tough to bat?
Like there was some, and the toss can be important too, and if you lose the toss in India, that can make it some of the toughest places to bat. I remember early on in my career, it was, the wickets were a bit different, but then you can get on some surfaces. I remember early on in my career as well, we had a game in Australia. It was a low scoring game. Both teams were sort of 160 each, and it nipped around the whole game. It swung a little bit. You even get times where the balls swing, and some years they don't. And you have this whole thing, and that can be quite different. One of the experiences I do recall was actually my first year of county cricket, which we used a ball called the Tiflex. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it was
Never.
it was the last year that they used it, and it swung for 80 overs. It was incredibly challenging. As a top order batter anyway, they were about this big, these balls, and it was, a nightmare. But yeah, I mean, I think probably India, or even Bangladesh recently, where it just I think we had the second or third shortest test match in the history, and it just spun and spun and spun, and I guess those conditions are so far away from the ones that we're used to at home. So probably those sorts of conditions.
Well, good thing that you're a fantastic spin.
Yeah.
I've actually gotten one more follow-up. It
All
just came into my head. The wobble seam delivery has picked up the pace, right, in recent years. And as Jared Kimber likes to call it, it's the pace playing pandemic. And batting averages have kind of dipped as well. So how have you kind of coped with that and tried to manage this wobble seam revolution, if you will?
Yeah, it's the thing now, isn't it? When I mentioned someone like Vernon Philander, he was an absolute expert at it. You get really tight to the stumps, and then it would just be this wobble seam that would do a little bit both ways. So, it's a real challenge. I mean, I think bowlers release the ball, and they're not totally sure whether it's going in or out, and because it's seam movement, not swing, it happens so late, which makes it really difficult to adjust. So therefore. look, personally, you're trying to make sure that your defensive positions are really strong, and you can limit damage when it does do a bit, and you're unsure of which way it's going to go, and then it's trying to play the situation and the bowler. Not everybody does it. It's certainly easy to do when the ball's hard and new. So, can you sort of navigate some of those periods to give yourself, an opportunity to score perhaps against either someone else or when the conditions are more suited.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay, so it's finally time for our rapid fire round.
Yeah.
We basically want you to help build, or we want to help you build your perfect batter.
Perfect batter.
Yes.
So I'll
Okay.
tell you a number of shots, and you have to say which batter plays that the best. All right.
All right, let's
Yeah.
go.
All right. So straight drive,
Straight drive. I'll go Babar Azam.
cover drive,
Virat Kohli.
Nice.
full shot,
Just current players or past players
No,
too?
no,
All
any
time.
player. All time.
Any.
and
Ricky Ponting.
Perfect.
sweep,
Sweet. Yunus Khan.
reverse sweep,
AB de Villiers.
Ooh.
cut shot,
Catch shot. I'll go. Gosh. Ross Taylor. Ross
Nice.
Taylor.
right. Forward defense,
Full defense. Joe Root.
back foot punch.
You don't need to be humble on this one, Kane.
Yeah.
Take your own name.
Yeah.
When we
I
did
was
this,
gonna,
we
I was
picked
gonna, I was gonna say Joe Root again, actually.
Joe Root again. All right.
Okay.
What about temperament?
Temperament. Steve Smith.
Running between the wickets.
David Warner.
We also
Yeah.
picked Davey Warner when we did this.
And
Lovely.
lastly, power hitting.
Power hitting. Andre Russell.
Nice.
Perfect.
That is a very, very
Yeah.
good batter, I
That is-
suppose.
Proper batter.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for giving us so much of your time, Kane. People would not know all of the
Cheers, guys.
technical difficulties we've had in this interview, but you've been
Yeah.
very patient throughout, and we really, really appreciate it. And I mean, it's been an absolute privilege for us to be able to talk to you.
Thank you for
No
joining
worries.
us.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
All right. Cheers.
All right. If you like the video, click on that like button, subscribe to our channel, follow Kane and us everywhere. And you can also listen to this podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and everywhere. Podbean, iHeartRadio, Pandora, everywhere. We'll see you guys next time. Until then,
Allah
bye-bye.
Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.